The 70s weren't just about disco balls and bell-bottoms. This decade rewrote cinema's DNA, giving us masterpieces that studios today wouldn't dare greenlight. Here's a mind-bender. One film on this list was initially released with zero marketing budget and became the highest-grossing independent movie of its time. Another was banned in multiple countries for depicting truths too uncomfortable for governments to stomach. Ready to discover which sacred cows of cinema you've been sleeping on? Let's dive in. A Clockwork Orange, 1971. Stanley Kubrick didn't just make a movie about ultraviolence. He created a philosophical bomb that detonated in theaters worldwide. This dystopian nightmare follows Alex DeLarge, a charismatic sociopath who leads his gang through nights of chaos before the government subjects him to experimental behavioral conditioning. The film asks the ultimate question: is forced goodness better than chosen evil? Kubrick pulled this masterpiece from British theaters himself after copycat crimes erupted across the UK, making it unavailable for nearly 3 decades in its home country. Malcolm McDowell delivered a performance so iconic that he couldn't escape the shadow of Alex for years. The Ludovico technique scene, where Alex's eyes are clamped open, wasn't CGI trickery, but actual torture for McDowell, who suffered a scratched cornea during filming. Critics were split down the middle. Some called it a revolutionary examination of free will, while others branded it dangerous pornography. Roger Ebert initially gave it 2 stars, before later admitting the film's controversial legacy cemented Kubrick's reputation as cinema's most fearless provocateur, proving that art should disturb the comfortable and comfort the disturbed. With its striking visuals, Beethoven-heavy soundtrack, and unflinching moral complexity, A Clockwork Orange remains a testament to 70s cinema's refusal to play safe. The Conversation, 1974. Francis Ford Coppola made The Godfather, then immediately turned around and crafted this paranoid thriller that predicted our surveillance-obsessed future with terrifying accuracy. Gene Hackman plays Harry Call, a brilliant but isolated surveillance expert whose latest assignment spirals into moral catastrophe when he believes the couple he's recording will be murdered. The genius lies in how Coppola makes you complicit in the voyeurism, forcing audiences to become the very thing the film critiques. Released just months before Watergate fully exploded, the movie felt like a documentary from the future. Hackman based his portrayal on obsessive attention to sonic detail, actually learning how wiretapping equipment functioned. The film's sound design won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, beating out Coppola's own Godfather Part II in the same year, an unprecedented achievement that showcased his range beyond mob epics. Critics hailed it as Hitchcockian in its suspense, but deeper in its philosophical implications about privacy, guilt, and the price of detachment. The final scene, where Harry tears his apartment apart searching for a bug, stands as one of cinema's most haunting endings. Modern viewers watch it with fresh horror, realizing Coppola wasn't exaggerating, but understating how thoroughly we'd surrender privacy. The Conversation transforms from period thriller to prophetic warning. Network, 1976. Paddy Chayefsky wrote a satire so savage that it stopped being satire within a decade. Peter Finch plays Howard Beale, a news anchor who has a mental breakdown on air and becomes a ratings sensation when the network exploits his madness for profit. The film dissects how television commodifies human suffering, turning tragedy into entertainment and outrage into advertising revenue. Finch delivered the iconic, "I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore," speech that became a cultural rallying cry. Yet he died before the Oscars could honor him with a posthumous Best Actor award. Faye Dunaway's portrayal of the ruthless programming executive Diana Christensen is equally chilling, embodying corporate amorality with seductive charm. Sidney Lumet directed with surgical precision, letting Chayefsky's razor-sharp dialogue cut through Hollywood's self-congratulatory myths about journalistic integrity. The film predicted reality television, tabloid news, and the blurring of entertainment and information that defines modern media. Critics recognized its prescience immediately. Vincent Canby called it outrageous and prophetic. What seemed like hyperbole in 1976 now feels like understatement when you flip through cable news channels exploiting grief and controversy for clicks. Network won 4 Oscars, but its greatest achievement was making audiences question every news broadcast they'd ever trusted. exposing the profit motive behind the anchor's concerned expression. Chinatown, 1974. Roman Polanski crafted the definitive neo-noir, a film so perfectly constructed that film schools still dissect its screenplay frame by frame. Jack Nicholson plays Jake Gittes, a private detective who stumbles into a web of corruption involving Los Angeles water rights, incest, and murder. Robert Towne's script is taught as the gold standard, with its layered plotting and devastating ending that refuses the Hollywood redemption arc. The famous nose-slitting scene shocked audiences. Polanski himself played the thug who slashes Nicholson, making the violence uncomfortably personal. Faye Dunaway's performance as the enigmatic Evelyn Mulwray contains depths that only reveal themselves on repeat viewings, each line carrying double meanings that recontextualize upon the film's horrific revelations. The production was famously tense, with Polanski and Dunaway clashing over a single strand of hair in one scene, a perfectionism that resulted in visual perfection. Critics universally praised it. Pauline Kael wrote that it represented Hollywood filmmaking at its apex. The ending remains one of cinema's most nihilistic conclusions, with Gittes' powerlessness crystallized in the haunting final line about Chinatown. Box office success proved audiences craved intelligent, adult cinema that treated them as thinking beings rather than passive consumers. Chinatown's influence echoes through every detective story, since proving that the best mysteries aren't about solving crimes, but about discovering uncomfortable truths. Harold and Maude, 1971. Hal Ashby directed the strangest love story ever greenlit by a major studio, pairing a death-obsessed teenager with a life-affirming 79-year-old woman. Bud Cort plays Harold, who stages elaborate fake demises to horrify his wealthy mother, until he meets Maude, played by Ruth Gordon, at a funeral. Their romance defies every convention, celebrating life through the lens of mortality and finding joy in society's discarded moments. Initial audiences were baffled and disgusted. The film bombed spectacularly at the box office, earning just $500,000 against its estimated $2 million budget. Critics savaged it as tasteless and disturbed, with Roger Ebert calling it an unworkable, bizarre scenario. Then something miraculous happened. College students discovered it, turning it into the ultimate midnight movie phenomenon throughout the 70s. Cat Stevens' soundtrack became inseparable from the film's whimsical yet profound meditation on living authentically. The final scene delivers an emotional gut punch that reframes everything preceding it, transforming quirky comedy into genuine tragedy and transcendence. Ruth Gordon's fearless performance earned her a cult following that persists today. She made Maude both absurd and deeply wise. The film's message about embracing life's fleeting beauty resonated across generations, proving that commercial failure doesn't determine artistic immortality. Harold and Maude stands as proof that the weirdest ideas sometimes carry the deepest truths. The Last Picture Show, 1971. Peter Bogdanovich captured small-town Texas, dying in exquisite black and white, creating a eulogy for American innocence that cuts deeper with each viewing. The story follows high school seniors navigating love and loss in a decaying oil town, where the movie theater's closure symbolizes the end of dreams. Jeff Bridges, Sybil Shepherd, and Timothy Bottoms delivered career-launching performances. But Ben Johnson and Cloris Leachman stole the film as aging souls grasping for connection in a world moving past them. Leachman won an Oscar for just 8 minutes of screen time, proof that quality obliterates quantity. Bogdanovich shot in black and white as a deliberate artistic choice, not budget constraint, evoking the classic Hollywood he revered while telling a story about its death. The film's frank treatment of loneliness and desire shocked small-town audiences who saw their lives reflected without Hollywood glamour or false hope. Critics recognized a major talent. Pauline Kael compared Bogdanovich to Orson Welles in her ecstatic review. The swimming pool scene remains one of cinema's most honest depictions of youthful recklessness colliding with adult consequences. Cinematographer Robert Surtees crafted images of such stark beauty that the emptiness becomes poetic rather than depressing. The Last Picture Show reminded audiences that great films could be made about ordinary people in forgotten places, that significance exists in every life, regardless of fame or fortune. Decades later, it stands as the definitive portrait of American adolescence losing its innocence. Apocalypse Now, 1979. Francis Ford Coppola didn't just make a war movie. He staged a descent into madness that nearly destroyed everyone involved. Martin Sheen plays Captain Willard, sent upriver into Cambodia to assassinate the rogue Colonel Kurtz, played by Marlon Brando in a performance shrouded in controversy and brilliance. The production became as nightmarish as the film itself, with Sheen suffering a real heart attack during the mirror punching scene, typhoons destroying sets, and Coppola mortgaging his personal assets to finish shooting. The director famously declared, "My film is not about Vietnam, it is Vietnam." The helicopter attack scene set to Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries became cinema's definitive statement on war's absurd theatricality, beautiful and horrifying simultaneously. Brando arrived on set massively overweight and having not read Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness, forcing Coppola to improvise the ending that became the film's haunting climax. Critics were divided initially. Some called it a masterpiece, while others deemed it pretentious and unfocused. Time proved the former camp correct. The film won the Palme d'Or and 2 Oscars, cementing its place in cinema history. The Redux version added 49 minutes, including the French plantation sequence that deepens the colonial critique. Apocalypse Now remains the ultimate anti-war film precisely because it refuses simple moral clarity, showing how conflict corrupts everyone it touches, turning soldiers into philosophers and philosophers into monsters. Taxi Driver, 1976. Martin Scorsese and Paul Schrader created the definitive portrait of urban alienation, giving us Travis Bickle, cinema's most iconic psychopath. Robert De Niro's method acting reached terrifying heights as he transformed into a Vietnam veteran descending into violent madness on New York's mean streets. The film captures mid-70s Manhattan as hell on earth, where crime and decay breed desperate souls seeking purpose through violence. De Niro actually worked 12-hour shifts as a real taxi driver, learning the profession's rhythms and encountering the city's underbelly firsthand. The "You talking to me?" scene was completely improvised, becoming one of cinema's most quoted moments while perfectly capturing Travis's fractured psyche. Jodie Foster was just 12 when she played the teenage worker Iris, a performance so mature it sparked controversy about child actors in adult roles. Bernard Herrmann composed the haunting score in his final work before death, the music adding operatic grandeur to Travis's delusional quest. Critics debated whether the film glorified or critiqued violence. Pauline Kael called it a masterpiece of controlled rage. The ambiguous ending leaves audiences questioning whether Travis achieved redemption or descended further into fantasy. John Hinckley's obsession with the film led to his attempted assassination of President Reagan, proving art's dangerous powers to inspire unstable minds. Taxi Driver remains essential viewing for understanding how cities create monsters and monsters create legends. The Godfather, 1972. Francis Ford Coppola transformed Mario Puzo's pulpy novel into American mythology, crafting the film against which all crime dramas measure themselves. Marlon Brando's Don Vito Corleone set the template for every mob boss since, his cotton-stuffed cheeks and whispered menace creating instant iconography. Paramount executives wanted to fire Coppola throughout production, believing his artistic vision would result in commercial disaster. Instead, it became the highest-grossing film ever made at that point, earning $245 million domestically while revolutionizing Hollywood's approach to genre filmmaking. Al Pacino's transformation from war hero Michael to ruthless Don provides the film's devastating arc, showing how family loyalty corrupts innocence into calculated evil. The baptism sequence remains filmmaking perfection, cross-cutting between sacred ritual and brutal murders to expose organized crime's hypocritical morality. Cinematographer Gordon Willis created the film's signature shadowy aesthetic, using darkness to suggest the moral void at the mob's heart. Critics initially complained about its length and pacing, before recognizing they had witnessed cinema history. Coppola's decision to treat gangsters as Shakespearean tragic figures elevated pulp into art, making audiences sympathize with murderers through sheer cinematic craft. The famous horsehead scene used a real horsehead from a dog food factory, making the shock genuine for actor John Marley. The Godfather didn't just entertain, it redefined American cinema's possibilities. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, 1975. Milos Forman adapted Ken Kesey's novel into a searing critique of institutional authority that swept the Oscars by winning all 5 major categories. Jack Nicholson plays Randall McMurphy, a criminal who fakes insanity to escape prison labor, only to discover the mental institution's tyranny exceeds anything he imagined. Louise Fletcher's Nurse Ratched became cinema's most terrifying villain, precisely because she weaponizes compassion, using therapeutic language to crush individuality. The film was shot in an actual mental hospital, with real patients integrated into background scenes, creating uncomfortable authenticity. Nicholson's performance walks the razor's edge between charming rebel and dangerous sociopath, making McMurphy's fate genuinely tragic rather than simply sad. The chief's climactic escape provides catharsis that feels earned through accumulated suffering, his journey from silent observer to empowered individual mirroring the film's liberation themes. Critics universally praised it. Roger Ebert called it one of the rare adaptations superior to its source material. The lobotomy scene remains cinema's most horrifying depiction of medical violence, made worse by its historical accuracy regarding actual institutional practices. Will Sampson's portrayal of Chief Bromden dignified a character Kesey wrote through racist stereotypes, humanizing him beyond the novel's limitations. Box office success proved audiences craved serious films tackling systemic oppression and the definition of sanity. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest endures because every generation faces institutions demanding conformity over freedom. Annie Hall, 1977. Woody Allen revolutionized romantic comedy by deconstructing it, creating a neurotic masterpiece that proved love stories could be intelligent and heartbreaking simultaneously. The film follows Alvy Singer's relationship with the titular Annie, played by Diane Keaton in a performance so natural it redefined screen acting. Allen broke every convention, using split screens, animated sequences, and direct address to camera, treating audiences as sophisticated enough to handle formal experimentation. The lobster scene and the cocaine sneeze became instant classics, balancing humor with genuine relationship authenticity. Keaton's wardrobe launched a fashion revolution. Women worldwide adopted her masculine-influenced style, proving cinema's cultural influence extended beyond theaters. Allen originally cut the film as a murder mystery, before editor Ralph Rosenblum restructured it into the romantic comedy that won Best Picture. Critics recognized something special. Pauline Kael wrote that Allen had created a new kind of romantic film, honest about love's failures rather than obsessed with its triumphs. The film won 4 Oscars, including Best Picture, beating Star Wars in an upset that demonstrated Academy voters' preference for character over spectacle. Annie Hall's willingness to show relationships ending without villains or dramatic betrayals felt revolutionary, suggesting that sometimes love simply isn't enough. The Marshall McLuhan cameo exemplified Allen's playful intellectualism, rewarding educated audiences while remaining accessible to everyone. Decades later, it remains the template for every romantic comedy attempting substance beyond formula. Jaws, 1975. Steven Spielberg was 26 when he transformed a troubled production into the film that invented the summer blockbuster. The story of a great white shark terrorizing a beach town seems simple until you recognize the metaphorical depths beneath the surface terror. Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, and Richard Dreyfuss created cinema's greatest mismatched trio, their clash of working-class pragmatism, academic theory, and obsessive revenge driving the narrative beyond monster movie trappings. The mechanical shark malfunctioned constantly, forcing Spielberg to suggest the threat through John Williams' iconic 2-note theme rather than showing the creature. This technical disaster resulted in artistic triumph. The unseen menace proved more terrifying than any rubber shark could achieve. Shaw's Indianapolis speech remains one of cinema's greatest monologues, his description of shark attacks so haunting that audiences forgot they were watching a thriller. The film earned $470 million worldwide, obliterating box office records and fundamentally changing Hollywood's business model toward high-concept summer releases. Critics debated its artistic merit versus commercial appeal, but Spielberg proved the two weren't mutually exclusive. The beach attack sequence manipulates audiences through pure cinematic technique, proving Spielberg's instinctive understanding of visual storytelling. Jaws created the modern blockbuster template, for better and worse, demonstrating that intelligent filmmaking could generate massive profits. Environmental groups later criticized it for demonizing sharks, leading to unnecessary killing of the endangered species. The Exorcist, 1973. William Friedkin didn't make a horror movie. He crafted a theological interrogation disguised as demonic possession. Linda Blair's performance as the possessed Regan traumatized audiences worldwide, with reports of viewers fainting, vomiting, and fleeing theaters becoming part of the film's legendary reception. Ellen Burstyn and Max von Sydow grounded the supernatural terror in genuine parental desperation and spiritual crisis, making the horror philosophical rather than merely shocking. Friedkin's commitment to practical effects created visceral terror. The bedroom remained refrigerated to make the actor's breath visible, subjecting the cast to genuine physical discomfort. The film's exploration of faith versus science, good versus evil, resonated beyond cheap scares, asking whether divine intervention exists in a rational universe. Critics were split. Some called it exploitative garbage, while others recognized a serious film about spiritual warfare. It earned $441 million worldwide, becoming the highest-grossing R-rated film until The Matrix Reloaded. The film was nominated for 10 Oscars, unprecedented for horror, proving genre films could achieve critical respectability. The spider walk scene, initially cut, became legendary when restored in later versions, demonstrating how deleted material can enhance reputations. Friedkin's documentary-style approach made the impossible feel real, treating demonic possession with the seriousness of medical diagnosis. The Exorcist remains terrifying because it suggests that rationality cannot protect us from supernatural evil, that some horrors transcend scientific explanation. Star Wars, 1977. George Lucas created modern mythology by rating every adventure serial, samurai film, and Western he'd ever loved, synthesizing them into the ultimate space opera. The film rescued cinema from 70s cynicism, offering optimistic heroism when audiences desperately needed escape from Watergate and Vietnam malaise. Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, and Carrie Fisher became instant icons, their chemistry transforming archetypal characters into beloved cultural fixtures. Every studio rejected Lucas's vision, except Fox, and even they slashed the budget, forcing innovations like using miniatures and practical effects that created timeless visuals. John Williams' score provided the sonic foundation for blockbuster filmmaking, proving orchestral music could elevate commercial cinema into art. The film earned $775 million worldwide, obliterating every box office record and fundamentally reshaping Hollywood's economic priorities. Critics dismissed it as juvenile escapism before recognizing they had witnessed a cultural earthquake. Even skeptics acknowledged its technical achievements revolutionized special effects. Lucas maintained merchandising rights in lieu of director fees, a decision that made him a billionaire and transformed how studios approached intellectual property. The cantina scene introduced dozens of alien species in minutes, creating a universe that felt lived in rather than manufactured. Star Wars proved that spectacle and storytelling weren't enemies but allies when executed with vision and craft. Its influence extends beyond cinema into fashion, language, and philosophy, making it arguably the most culturally significant film ever made. The Godfather Part II, 1974. Coppola achieved the impossible, a sequel surpassing its predecessor by expanding the story backward and forward simultaneously. The parallel narratives of young Vito's rise and Michael's consolidation of power create a devastating contrast between immigrant dreams and American nightmares. Robert De Niro won an Oscar for portraying the young Don Corleone, learning Sicilian and embodying Brando's mannerisms while creating a distinct performance. Al Pacino's Michael completes his transformation into the monster his father never intended him to become. The film's tragic center lying in how family preservation destroys the family. The decision to kill Fredo provides the saga's most heartbreaking moment, Michael choosing empire over blood in a betrayal that damns him completely. Coppola's ambition nearly bankrupted him. The studio doubted audiences would accept a 3-hour, subtitled epic about gangsters. Instead, it became the first sequel to win Best Picture, vindicating Coppola's artistic vision. The Cuba sequence depicts revolution and corruption with operatic grandeur, showing how American imperialism abroad mirrors mob tactics at home. Gordon Willis's cinematography grows darker as Michael's soul deteriorates, visual storytelling at its most sophisticated. Critics recognized a masterpiece. Vincent Canby called it one of the greatest American films. The final shot of Michael alone, having achieved absolute power and total isolation, remains cinema's definitive image of tragic success. The Godfather Part II proved sequels could be art rather than cash grabs,